Here's the standard sauce pour shot to get you all excited. Look at that colour. If you're not challenging your food against itself, now that should be illegal. Oh, let's get into it. Today we're going to match up dry ribs versus wet ribs.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Cooking time for this recipe will be under 2 hours and 30 minutes. Or for those of you who love to use my beer timer, you're looking at a 5 beer cook. Cheers! If you pre-clicked like on this video, it's okay. Sometimes we can't help being a little bit quick. I've wanted to have a rib off for a while, so I went down to see Mick out at Gippsland Premium Meats and told him what I had planned. I said I didn't need a huge rack. I said I didn't need huge, I said I didn't need huge racks. He said, here's a couple of little cuties you can have. Enter these 2 racks weighing in at a cute 500 grams each, and typically these sort of ribs are nicknamed shiners because you can sort of see the bones just peeking through the meat there. But these are going to be perfect for our rib off. Now, I personally don't bother removing the membrane off my ribs anymore, but for those of you who've never done it, I'm going to show you. Glove up, grab a butter knife because it is rounded and less likely to tear the membrane when we're trying to get it off. Flip your ribs over to expose the membrane. This rack of ribs already has it removed. So let's play with this rack. Using your butter knife, anywhere along any of the bones, you just want to get your butter knife under the membrane without tearing it, like that. And put your finger under it and use a little bit of pressure and just keep lifting it up. Now, if you find it's a bit slippery, you can use a piece of paper towel to grip it, or in one motion you can just rip the membrane off. Then, changing knives to something a bit sharper, we're going to trim off all of this excess fat. And I'm just going to neaten up the ends of the ribs. Did you know that ribs get their name because they come from the rib area of the animal? I know, how weird is that? I want to treat both racks of ribs exactly the same until it comes time to glazing one set of the ribs. I'm going to make a pork rub with some heat and some sweetness in it that's going to complement the pork. Grab yourself an empty rub shaker or bowl if that's the way you identify. And then I like to roll up a piece of A4 paper to make a big homemade funnel that makes it easier to get the rub ingredients into the rub shaker. And tape it in place. Ta-da! Starting with 4 tablespoons of smoky paprika, 2 tablespoons of light brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of kosher salt or cooking salt, but not table salt. It's not the same thing. 1 tablespoon of black pepper, 2 teaspoons of mustard powder, 2 teaspoons of garlic powder, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, half a teaspoon of broken knee or half a teaspoon of cayenne pepper. Remove the funnel, add the cap, screw it on and shake it up like no one's looking. Glove up like a surgeon and don't forget to snap the cuff. It helps, trust me, I'm a surgeon. Then from a height of around 30 centimeters, you can start to apply the rub to the back side of the ribs. This just allows the particles in the rub time to separate before they hit your meat, giving you a more even coverage of your rub, and therefore every bite is going to be exactly the same. Now just give them a consensual pat and flip them over. And apply the rub to the fleshy side of the meat now. Don't forget the sides and the ends. Now leave these alone for 30 to 45 minutes while they glaze over. Make sure your slapping is consensual and you wear protection. Today I'm using my Z Grills 700E XL pellet smoker and I'm pairing it up with some Barbecue Delight contest mix pellets, as I want to be smoking at 150 degrees Celsius today. Just turn it on and set your temp and fill the hopper with pellets. And then just wait for it to reach your desired cooking temp. Once at temp, I'll carefully place the grill back in. That's it. Pellet smokers making smoking a breeze. Plus, they have a lot of cooking real estate, which we need for this dry rib versus wet rib battle royale. Did you know that pellet grill ownership is up 300% over the last 5 years? Look, there's a graph, so it must be true. You can see the rub has drawn out moisture from the outer edges of the pork. This has dissolved the rub, making it look more like a glaze than a dry rub. We can now pop the ribs into the smoker and we're going to keep them on the lower rack. Close the lid and we'll check back on these in an hour. And we've prepped these ribs perfectly to attract more smoke. How, you might ask? The way to attracting more smoke onto any meat is by keeping it moist. Smack! Now, even though it's morning, let's say now is as good a time as any to grab another drink.
Beer is for breakfast round here. Drink or be gone.
Did you know studies have shown that people that share my videos are more intelligent and beautiful people? We're an hour into the cook, so let's take a look and see if we're happy. I'm looking for colour and to see if the bark is set. I'm loving the colour, and by using my finger I can tell that the bark is set and not coming off. So you want to lay out a couple of sheets of flexible metal for each rack, and then place on each flexible metal roughly about 2 tablespoons of light brown sugar, and then about 2 tablespoons of honey and 75 grams of unsalted butter, and around a teaspoon of fresh lemon juice. What this is going to do is help tenderize the ribs, and it's going to add some much needed zing to the flavour. And then placing the ribs flesh side down, and then we're going to wrap them up, keeping the flesh side down in that sweet buttery mix. And then place these back in the smoker, and we're going to come back and check on them in an hour and 15 minutes. How long your ribs take to cook will be guided by how many beers you drink. I know it sounds weird, but that's how science works. We want to add some sauce to 1 rack of ribs at the end of this cook. So while the ribs are around 20 minutes away from me checking on them again, into a small pot, you want to add 1/4 cup of barbecue sauce. I'm using Stubbs, around 2 tablespoons of honey, and 2 tablespoons of unsalted butter. And just pop this in the smoker so it warms up and it's ready for when we need it. Subscribing to this channel could be your good deed for the day. Or not, the choice is yours. The ribs have been wrapped up for 1 hour and 15 minutes, so we can get them out of the smoker and check on them. Remember to use some heat-proof gloves. They're going to be hot. Also, that sauce is ready to come out. We don't need it any warmer, and that butter has melted. Now we want to unwrap the ribs, and just remember, be careful. We don't want to lose the liquids in here. And also, as you're opening the flexible metal, the steam's going to come out, so don't have your face directly over the top. And then using a wooden skewer, you just want to probe the meat between the bones, checking for tenderness, like there's meat anywhere else.
They're not smart people.
And if the meat is tender, flip the ribs over and roll up the edges of the foil. And this technique is called boating. Now we want to do the same with the second rack. We want to check this for tenderness. And just using the skewer again between the bones. Flip that rack over, and we're going to boat this rack as well. Now, if your ribs aren't tender at this point, wrap them back up and check them in another 15 minutes. This rack here is going straight back into the smoker as they are. These are our dry ribs. This rack we can pour over the warmed up sauce and just use a basting brush to make sure we get it everywhere. Then place both racks of ribs back into the smoker for 15 minutes. The dry rack will tack up in this time, and the rack with the sauce will look like it's glazed as that sauce settles and smooths out. Never apply your sauce at the start of the cook or it will burn due to the high sugar content in it. The ribs are ready, so we just want to carefully get them out of the smoker, remembering there is a lot of hot liquid in these foil boats. Now, how good do they look? Now, when it comes time to slicing your ribs up, I recommend turning them over. That way, you can actually see the bones and you can slice between them. Let's give the wet ribs a try first. Super tender, super tasty, sweet, with a little bit of heat at the end. I could polish that rack off right now. Now, time to try the dry ribs. Well, I said I could polish the other rack off. But these dry ribs, I reckon I could eat these all day long. So the winner is the dry ribs.